Hello, my name is Lexi Mendoza, and this is Andy Kim.
Wow.
So, do you want to start just by giving us a little bit about your relationship with non-U.S. background?
Yeah, so my name is Andy Kim, and I'm a first generation Korean American. And so my parents came to the US when they were in their mid 20s, I believe, and they had me about a couple years later. And so I was born in Michigan in 1999.
What sports did you play or have interest in when you were younger, and what sports do you play or have interest in now?
Yeah, so I originally started playing soccer when we first moved to California, and in terms of that, we usually just played in small clubs with each other in like the San Francisco area, which is where I lived. But as soon as we moved to Iowa, I started playing more baseball and I shifted over a little bit. And then towards the end of middle school and the beginning of high school, I started playing tennis, and I really just stuck to that for the rest of my high school career. And other than those sports, I really only had an interest in basketball, and that was just mainly watching, but not as much playing.
How are sports in your life influenced by your cultural background?
So I was influenced by my culture mainly from my parents because they also played soccer and tennis in their high school careers. So basically, and those were popular sports in their high schools and in Korea in general at the time. So they basically passed that on to me, and I started playing sports through their experiences.
Do you think that you would have a different perspective of sports if it weren't for your cultural background?
Yeah, so I actually don't think that I would have much of a different experience in the U.S. If I had a typical background, just because the sports that were played in Korea aren't very different from the ones that are very popular here, such as soccer, tennis. But I feel like I would have tried out more traditionally popular sports in the U.S., such as football or wrestling, for example.
In your parents' cultural background, do you think there are any sports that are more dominant, more common than in the U.S. maybe?
Yeah, so in Korea, I know that both soccer and baseball are very popular. They have their own leagues, and my grandparents are very big baseball fans, so I know that as a fact. But golf, just like it is in the U.S., it's a very popular leisure sport, especially among like the older crowd, but it is very popular.
What are some similarities and differences that you notice with the sport culture in Korea and the sport culture in the United States?
Okay, so the differences between Korea and the U.S., the biggest one at least, is like the level of contact in the most popular sports. So in the U.S., there's obviously sports such as football and wrestling that are very high contact sports, but we don't really have that in Korea. I'd say like the sport with the most contact is actually taekwondo, but there's that difference, and there are also similarities. So like I said before, the sports that are popular here in the U.S. are also popular in Korea, sports such as baseball, golf, and soccer. And I guess fans are religiously watching those pro games on both countries.
So just to kind of wrap things up, are there any connections between the way soccer was discussed and portrayed in class compared to your personal kind of more diverse experiences with the sport?
Yeah, so the people that were talked about in the soccer section, people like Maradona, Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, I actually knew about them through soccer club, and we would try to imitate their moves, and we looked up to them a lot. We would watch them religiously while they played their pro games. But I think that my overall experience with sports, given my cultural background, it wasn't really any different than a typical American person or someone with a more typical background, because the sports are just basically the same. The popularity of baseball and soccer and golf they're mutual between the U.S. and golf and Korea. So it wasn't as different as most people would think, but it just goes to show how sports is universal. I looked up to the same people as the people in like my peers here that are from a U.S. background. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I definitely agree. Okay, well, thanks, Andy, for
Yeah.
your time and kind of talking to us a little bit more about your experience with sports.
No problem.